This is a story about a girl, a secret, and a respected man whose facade would shatter an entire community. Stay with me. What you're about to hear began with one ordinary Sunday and ended up exposing a darkness that stunned a nation. On a quiet Sunday morning, February 3, 2018, in a peaceful residential neighborhood of Dunedin, New Zealand, a mother was trying and failing to wake up her 16-year-old daughter. The house felt unusually silent, especially for that time of morning when a teenager would normally be getting up. A few hours later, law enforcement was at the door. Something terrible had happened overnight, but no one yet understood exactly what. The girl's phone had vanished. Suspicious posts and deleted images began surfacing on social media. In private messages, investigators found hints of blackmail and threats. It quickly became clear that this wasn't just a family dispute. Something much darker was at play. At the center of the case soon appeared someone the community had long admired, a physician who worked with young people, accomplished, respected, with a flawless public image. Someone who, on the surface, seemed entirely trustworthy. But that night marked the beginning of a series of events that shook the entire country. It opened a door no one wanted to look behind. Welcome to Beyond the Crime. I'm glad you're here. If you enjoy investigative storytelling, please like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes. Amber Rose Rush was born on October 29, 2001, in Christchurch, the largest city on New Zealand's South Island. She was the youngest of three siblings, older sister Chantel, brother Jaden, and then Amber. Jaden was just a year older than her, and the bond between them was incredibly strong. He would later say Amber wasn't just a sister, she was his best friend. Their parents, Lisa Ann and Shane Rush, divorced while Amber was in her early teens. After the separation, Lisa Ann began a new chapter with a man named Brendan McNee. Together, they decided to leave Christchurch behind and move to the quieter city of Dunedin, about 236 miles southeast. Their new home was on Clermiston Avenue in the suburb of Corstorphine. Amber and Jaden went with their mother. Despite the divorce, Shane remained very involved in their lives, but the kids preferred living with Lisa Ann. The move to Dunedin marked a new beginning for Amber. Compared to bustling Christchurch, this city felt almost rural, surrounded by hills, greenery, beaches, and small schools. It lacked the chaos of a big city, and Amber settled in quickly. She attended Taieri College, located in the nearby suburb of Mosgiel. At the time of the incident, she was in Year 11, typically the stage for students around 15 to 16 years old. Outside of school, Amber worked part-time at the New World Center City supermarket. Co-workers described her as cheerful, reliable, and full of energy. Adult staff members noted how mature she was for her age. But Amber's real passion was dance. She was seriously considering turning it into a career. After finishing school, she planned to pursue this path and had already begun looking into suitable studios. In her everyday life, Amber Rose was a typical teen of her generation. She was active on Facebook and Instagram, frequently posting pictures with friends, sharing dance videos, and writing personal thoughts. Her social media presence felt authentic and full of energy, the voice of someone still discovering herself, dreaming, and figuring out her place in the world. On the evening of February 2, 2018, everything appeared normal. Amber was home, spending a lot of time on her phone, chatting with friends and a young man named Christian Clark. Their conversation that night was intense. She was sending him screenshots of messages, discussing an argument she had with someone else. Amber's tone in those chats showed clear signs of frustration and emotional exhaustion. She wrote openly that she was angry and no longer willing to stay silent. The focus of these conversations was Vinod Scantha, an adult man with whom Amber had previously been in contact. Their relationship had ended, and now Amber was determined to speak out about what she knew. Christian offered to come pick her up and take her away from the house, but Amber declined. She said she was fine. Not long after, she stopped responding. Around midnight, her sister Chantel received a brief message from Amber that simply read, "I'm angry." She didn't see it until the next morning. By then, it was too late. That would be the last message Amber ever sent to anyone close to her. Later that same night, Amber posted screenshots of her conversations with Venad to social media. In her posts, she accused him of aggressive behavior, providing alcohol and banned substances to underage individuals, and organizing parties that involved them. For Vinod, these allegations were extremely dangerous. Her friends quickly noticed the posts. One of them, Danny, called Vinod directly to warn him about what had just gone public. This call happened almost immediately after the posts went live. After receiving the call, Venad messaged Amber demanding that she take down the post. His tone was threatening. He insisted she stay quiet. But Amber made it clear that she wasn't afraid and had no intention of backing down. Her final message came across as a direct warning. She wanted him held accountable for everything he had done. That moment was the breaking point. At 11:39 p.m., Vinod got into his BMW and left the suburb of Fairfield. He first stopped to pick up Danny, the same friend he'd met at a party a year earlier. While on the way, Danny gave Vinod instructions on where to find the spare key to Amber's house under a Buddha statue in the garden. They were familiar with the layout, and nothing slowed them down. At exactly 12:15 a.m., according to GPS data and cell tower records, Vinod entered the home. He was dressed entirely in black gloves, a dark beanie, not like someone dropping by for a casual visit, but someone who had planned for stealth. After entering Amber's bedroom, Vinod inflicted multiple knife wounds. He immediately targeted her neck, aiming for the carotid artery. Based on the nature of the injuries, it appeared the perpetrator knew exactly where to strike. The autopsy later revealed that one of the cuts came dangerously close to severing the artery. Amber passed away from blood loss before she had a chance to call for help. Additional wounds were found on her back, including damage to her spine, injuries that suggested deliberate and forceful action. After committing the act, Vinod took Amber's phone and her driver's license. It looked like he intended to dispose of anything that could link him to what had happened. He exited through the same door he had entered and returned to the car. Danny was waiting behind the wheel. Together, they headed toward Blackhead Quarry, a limestone extraction site. It was there that Vinod discarded the phone. Back at home, they changed their clothes and began trying to eliminate evidence. However, while cleaning Vinod's shoes, Danny intentionally left traces of blood on them. Later, his statements about how and why that happened would be inconsistent and raise suspicion. Thus ended a night that had started as just another online conversation. The suspect believed he had erased every trace. At the time of the incident, 4 people were in the house: Amber Rose, her brother Jaden, their mother Lisa Ann, and stepfather Brendan McNee. Everyone except Amber was asleep. Neither adult reported hearing screams or any disturbance. This fact raised serious questions. How did no one wake up while a violent attack was unfolding in the room next door? Some of the answers were found in the crime scene itself. Pillows were scattered around Amber's body, possibly used to muffle sounds as if they had been placed there intentionally in advance to suppress any cries for help. The morning of February 3rd began like any other. Around 9 a.m., Lisa Ann entered Amber's room to wake her up. The first thing she noticed was a blood stain on a pillow, which she initially thought was from a nosebleed. Amber was lying under the covers and didn't respond. When Lisa Ann pulled back the blanket, she saw a deep wound on her daughter's neck, an injury so severe there was no mistaking its seriousness. She screamed. Her husband heard her first, followed by Jaden. Jaden reacted immediately. Realizing that his mother was in shock, he insisted they contact emergency services right away. His quick thinking ensured the scene remained undisturbed. He stayed close to his mother, keeping her from moving anything that might interfere with the investigation. This immediate response would prove crucial in preserving evidence. A forensic team arrived shortly after. The first area they examined was Amber's room. Aside from the space around her body, the room was relatively tidy. The bedding and pillows were soaked with blood. Amber was found on the bed. Even before the autopsy, forensic experts on the scene concluded that the cause of death was massive blood loss. The precision of the neck wound led investigators to suspect that the attacker may have had professional-level knowledge of human anatomy. That theory would later be confirmed. Police immediately secured the scene and began questioning the family members. All three, Jaden, Lisa Ann, and Brendan, were in a state of shock. Officers inspecting the home confirmed that the front door had been locked, the windows were intact, and there were no signs of a struggle. Everything pointed to one chilling conclusion. The person responsible had known exactly how to get inside. From that moment, the case was reclassified as a criminal investigation involving intentional harm. Every detail began to be documented: fingerprints, fibers, possible traces of blood outside the bedroom, footage from neighboring security cameras, and an inventory of what might have been taken from the scene. The leading theory was that the perpetrator acted quickly, deliberately, and with precision. Amber was the only target. No one else in the home was harmed. This suggested the attacker knew exactly who was in the house and had planned the act in advance. As the investigation unfolded, police began interviewing Amber Rose's friends, co-workers, and acquaintances. In those conversations, a name kept surfacing: a man she had recently exchanged messages with. His behavior had raised concerns among those who knew her. Vened Scantha was in his early 30s. On paper and in public, he appeared to be a successful, well-regarded individual. He worked as a physician, had a stable career, medical training, and a position that brought him a certain level of trust in the community. But behind the polished exterior, troubling signs were beginning to emerge. Shortly before the incident, his professional reputation had started to unravel. Colleagues reported that he showed up to work under the influence, crossed professional boundaries, and once even treated a patient while impaired. The medical facility he worked for had already begun the process of disciplinary review. One particularly concerning incident involved him falsely claiming that his mother had passed away, an excuse used to justify his absence. These accounts painted a picture of someone rapidly declining both professionally and personally. Another red flag was his unusual closeness with teens. He regularly hosted parties at his home in Fairfield, where underage guests were present, and both alcohol and banned substances were reportedly provided without restriction. This dynamic created a dependency. Young people came seeking free entertainment, while he gained access and control. According to his roommate and the roommate's girlfriend, the guests kept getting younger, and Vened's behavior grew increasingly inappropriate. Amber Rose met Vened at one of those gatherings in 2017. The connection was made through Danny, a teen who also maintained a close relationship with Vened. It was Danny who invited Amber to one of the events at Vened's home where the two first met. Their communication progressed quickly. To Amber, he came across as an interesting, mature friend. Vened, for his part, seemed to focus particular attention on her. Unaware of the risks, Amber continued their interactions, even confiding in him about her thoughts and future goals. At one point, she even considered renting a room from him. Whether her parents were aware of this possibility remains unclear, but things between Amber and Vened eventually reached a breaking point. In January 2018, after one of his parties, Amber stayed the night at Vened's house. At some point during the night, she woke up to a disturbing sensation. Someone was touching her. She realized her shirt and bra had been removed, and there was a hand inside her underwear. Looking around, she saw she was alone in the room with Vened. Horrified, she immediately pulled away, slapped him, and left. That moment changed everything for her. From then on, she cut off all communication. In her eyes, someone she once considered a friend had crossed a serious line and violated her trust. Around the same time, similar reports began to emerge from others who attended Venad's gatherings. Some young women spoke about inappropriate touching, and one described a nearly identical experience waking up to find someone's hand on her. One witness claimed they saw Venad touching a girl who was unconscious on the couch, and when questioned, he allegedly responded, "I'm a doctor. I know what I'm doing." These weren't isolated incidents. No one in Amber's circle trusted Venad. Most of her friends were afraid of him and didn't understand why a grown man constantly surrounded himself with underage teens. He had no family, no long-term relationship, yet regularly hosted gatherings with young people. What once seemed odd had begun to feel threatening. After Amber Rose cut ties with Venad Scantha, the situation didn't end. It escalated. He didn't take the rejection well. Instead of backing off, he doubled down, repeatedly trying to contact her under various pretenses. His behavior became overtly predatory. Venad started offering Amber money, first $2,000, then increasing it to $20,000 explicitly in exchange for physical intimacy. He ignored her refusals and the clear age difference, behaving as if buying silence was somehow acceptable. These persistent and manipulative offers continued for weeks, including throughout January 2018, shortly before the tragedy occurred. Amber Rose understood the importance of preserving evidence. She began saving screenshots of her conversations with him and sharing them with friends. She was open about her intent to take the material to law enforcement. Some of those close to her were aware of what was happening, and their knowledge later became crucial to the investigation. One part of their message exchange revealed that Amber had started taking a firmer stance. She told him directly that she was tired of the pressure and ready to speak out. She knew the truth could destroy his reputation and career. But she wasn't backing down. Along with the threats and pressure, there was another point of tension, a mention of his credit card information. Case files revealed that a suspicious transaction had indeed occurred using Venad's card, a small charge allegedly made by Amber for an online purchase. While this detail was never officially confirmed as a motive, it was part of their correspondence. Venad accused her of theft, to which she responded that he had no right to talk about stealing while engaging in behavior that broke the law himself. This conflict marked the breaking point in their relationship. Amber was angry and emotionally drained, but she wasn't afraid. Her messages were firm and clear. She made no attempt to hide her intention to go to the police and continue sharing what she knew. Daniel, known among friends as Danny, played a role in this case that's hard to overstate. Despite being just 16, he wasn't merely a bystander. His actions directly influenced the course of the tragedy. Danny acted as a go-between, connecting Venad with local teens, inviting them to gatherings, and staying over at Venad's home. Their relationship was casual, built around hanging out, alcohol, and a sense of trust. Before long, Danny was in the center of everything. The morning after the crime, Danny didn't just continue interacting with Venad, he helped cover things up. Later, Danny claimed he was only following instructions and didn't know what had actually happened. But the investigation revealed that he was fully aware of whose belongings were being destroyed and why Venad was in such a hurry to get rid of them. One particularly suspicious detail. The next day, Danny returned to the location where the evidence had been discarded and found remains of clothing. He didn't report this to law enforcement. Instead, he stayed silent. He also deleted conversations with both Amber and Venad, including messages that would later be considered key evidence. During interviews, Danny tried to shift suspicion away from himself. He insisted he had no idea Venad was heading to Amber's house or what he was planning. But police uncovered inconsistencies. His claims didn't line up with messages, GPS data, or statements from other witnesses. It became clear that Danny knew far more than he was saying. Although he wasn't formally charged, his behavior raised serious concerns. Was he just a convenient link between an adult and local teens? Or was he knowingly enabling dangerous behavior? Eventually, Danny did testify against Vened, but only after realizing the police were close to putting the pieces together without his help. His shifting role from helping the suspect to cooperating with the authorities allowed him to avoid charges. Still, the ethical question remained. He had seen what was coming and didn't stop it. Vinod Scantha failed in his attempt to erase all traces of the crime. Despite his efforts to destroy evidence, the investigation quickly gained momentum as clues began to form a clear picture. Technology, biological evidence, and Vinod's own mistakes played a crucial role. Investigators discovered that all messages on Amber's phone had been deleted the night of the incident, and the device itself had been destroyed. Vinod had personally recorded himself smashing the phone against a rock and throwing it into a ravine. He believed he was getting rid of the only item that could tie him to what had happened. What he didn't anticipate was that his car's built-in GPS tracker had silently logged every move. The GPS data revealed his exact route the night of the crime and confirmed he had been at the scene. Inside Vinod Scantha's BMW, investigators found traces of Amber's blood even after he had attempted to clean the vehicle. Forensic experts identified blood on the front passenger seat and beneath the inner door panel. Despite a thorough cleaning, these traces remained, becoming another undeniable piece of evidence pointing toward his involvement. Police also discovered remnants of burned clothing at the home of Vinod's former girlfriend. He had shown up there the day after the crime, claiming he was stopping by for a visit. He asked to start a fire, saying he needed to get rid of old lab coats. However, what ended up in the fire weren't uniforms. It was a pair of sneakers, jeans, and a t-shirt believed to be the clothes he wore the night of the crime. A witness later testified that the items had visible stains that resembled blood. Additional testimony came from teens Vinod had interacted with before and after the incident. Several of them said he had offered them money to stay silent, asking them not to talk to the police about the parties and to delete messages. One even said that Vinod appeared anxious and was asking for advice on how to handle the pressure. Another recalled seeing him scrubbing dirt off his sneakers and asking for bleach. Together, the technical findings, physical evidence, and witness testimonies formed a clear pattern. It pointed to Vinod Scantha not only committing the crime, but also actively trying to destroy evidence and manipulate potential witnesses. Despite his efforts, he couldn't erase everything. The trial in the case of Amber Rose Rush began in 2019. It lasted several weeks and drew national attention across New Zealand. A total of 69 witnesses were called to testify, including teens, police officers, forensic experts, Amber's loved ones, and both friends and former acquaintances of the accused. In court, it became a high-stakes battle. The prosecution worked to reconstruct the events of that night, while the defense attempted to dismantle their version. Vinod Scantha denied all allegations. He claimed he had never been at Amber's house, didn't commit the crime, and had no knowledge of who did. His legal team presented an alternate theory, suggesting that Danny, the teen who had helped Vinod before and after the tragedy, could have been responsible. They tried to paint Vinod as the target of blackmail by Amber and her social circle, but the evidence told a different story. Throughout the proceedings, Vinod remained reserved. During questioning, he gave brief, quiet answers, attempting to maintain composure. In court, he showed little emotion and avoided eye contact with Amber's family. His demeanor was described as cold and detached. Meanwhile, Amber's loved ones visibly struggled with the process. Her mother had to leave the courtroom several times, and her brother Jaden did not attend the trial, having given his statement earlier. For them, the court hearings were a painful reminder of a night that had forever changed their lives. In closing arguments, the prosecutor emphasized, this wasn't just a violent act. It was the calculated silencing of a witness by someone who had long hidden behind a mask of respectability. It was now up to the court to decide. Should they believe the dozens of witnesses and overwhelming evidence, or a defendant whose words didn't align with the facts? The verdict in the Amber Rose Rush case was delivered. Vinod Scantha was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 19 years before eligibility for parole. He never admitted guilt. Almost immediately after the sentencing, his legal team began preparing an appeal. For Scantha, the hope of overturning the case became his only explanation for what had happened. However, a year later, the Court of Appeal denied his request. That same evening, while in his cell at Otago Corrections Facility, Scantha ended his life. He was found by prison staff, having taken fatal action. It was determined that he had received the written rejection shortly before, and, according to corrections officers, had not displayed any outward signs of instability. His cell contained books, notes, and personal belongings. No final message was left behind. His passing triggered a wave of public criticism aimed at the correctional system. Questions were raised. How could someone convicted of such a serious offense, who had just lost an appeal, not be under close supervision? As a result, New Zealand revised its inmate management policies, introducing stricter monitoring for high-risk individuals during the critical 72-hour window after a verdict or appeal denial. But the tragedy didn't end there. 4 months later, Amber's mother, Lisa Ann Rush, also ended her life. She had struggled deeply with the loss of her daughter, the emotional toll of the trial, and intense public attention. Those close to her said she had been emotionally depleted. After the funeral, she withdrew from the outside world. She stopped working, avoided media, and distanced herself from friends. At her memorial, her son Jaden and his stepsister gave brief but emotional speeches. They described Lisa as someone who had tried to stay strong but ultimately faced her grief alone, a pain too deep to overcome. Jaden spoke of his heartbreak, saying that in the span of a year he had lost not only his sister but also his mother. The family was left shattered. After Lisa's passing, Amber's stepfather Brendan launched a public campaign to push for stricter penalties for aggressive crimes against minors. He submitted a petition advocating for life sentences without parole for individuals who commit such acts. The petition gathered tens of thousands of signatures. Brendan argued that if such a law had existed earlier, Scantha might have been held accountable for previous behavior, and Amber might still be alive. This tragic case led to real changes in legislation and judicial practices, but for the Rush family, those changes were little consolation. In just 2 years, they had lost 3 people, a daughter, a mother, and their belief that justice always arrives before it's too late. After Amber's death and her mother's passing, no one lived in the house where it all happened. The furniture was removed, the windows were boarded up. Only Jaden remained, Amber's older brother. He didn't leave Dunedin, choosing to stay in the same city but keeping a low profile. For a while, Jaden declined to speak publicly. Eventually, he released a short statement. In it, he said that every day was a struggle to get up and keep going. His sister had been his closest friend. He had always seen himself as her protector, but on that night he had been sleeping just 1 room away and heard nothing. That thought, he said, would stay with him forever. The controversy surrounding the case didn't fade quickly. Vinod Scantha's name became a symbol of systemic failure within healthcare, oversight institutions, and even in youth guidance. Yet the case served as a harsh lesson for the country. It forced many to confront the uncomfortable truth that charm and social standing do not guarantee someone's intentions are safe. Behind the appearance of a successful professional can be someone posing a serious risk to the community. Amber's family would never be the same, but what happened to her prompted a deep reevaluation across society. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Crime. If this episode resonated with you, please like this video, share it with someone who should hear it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes.